why am I hiring more people, working longer, harder, faster, better, getting better at the thing I do, which was real estate negotiation sales, and then I wasn't making more money. I was like, what the fuck? What is going on here? Pretty much behind any practitioner, business owner, entrepreneur, coach, behind any struggling business is a business owner or founder that doesn't have their personal shit together. So they're about to go do something really courageous or brave, and then they go, you can't do this. In their mind, they're like, who do you think you are? You're not fucking good enough for this. What do most people do? They focus on what they don't want. I gotta get out of debt. I need to get a better job. You're either selling yourself into your goals and dreams, or you're selling yourself into your problems and your scarcity.
All right, guys. So today we're sitting with Brandon Yegar, founder of YourTrueAlchemy and the mind behind Yeager Training, helping entrepreneurs rewire how they think so that they can actually hit those big, impossible goals. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. Excited to be here. Excited to have a conversation.
Of course. So I guess, Brandon, for people that don't really know you yet, I guess what problem have you been obsessed with trying to solve in your career and with what you have with your programs?
You know, probably optimization, mindset, human performance, big into health optimization. And naturally, at a young age, I was mentored by my grandfather. So he got my brother and I listening for 30 minutes a day. Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, all these greats. And and he always said this, whether he installed this intentionally, it was like, whether you choose to go to college or not, he always said, college alone will not be enough to be successful in business and life. And he was so spot on. And I feel like that stayed with me all through my high school years. And right when I graduated high school, I jumped right into business at 18 years old. I got my real estate license, started making sales in real estate, built my real estate brokerage in California. And I hit my own glass ceiling. It's kind of funny, like for about 5 years there, once I hustled and grinded it out, like so many of us do, I went away from personal growth and development, came back around because I hit this glass ceiling. And I was like, why am I hiring more people, working longer, harder, faster, better, getting better at the thing I do, which was real estate negotiation sales. And then I wasn't making more money. I was like, what the fuck? What is going on here? So that's when I literally hired a coach, and she said, Brandon, go take these NLP trainings. And I was like, NLP? I know what NLP is, neuro-linguistic programming. My grandfather had me listen to this stuff when I was little and reading books and listening to cassettes and all this stuff. And that's when I went to the training, got out of an unhealthy relationship, lost 40 pounds, got my shit together like so many business owners. And pretty much behind any practitioner, business owner, entrepreneur, coach, behind any struggling business is a business owner or founder that doesn't have their personal shit together. That's what we do. That was my story. Because your belief systems, because your attitudes, your emotions, your traumas, your dramas, all that stuff plays right out in your business. And people are like, why are you not making more money? Well, look at our personal life, sift through that, audit that stuff, and you'll be shocked at how much success you can create once you get rid of it, release it, move through it, learn from it.
Sure. And you were 18. You said, I remember we were discussing, you said you went through like a full NLP training and did like the whole thing. How old were you when you did that?
So I got my license when I was 18, got into real estate, hit an early level of success. And then by 24, 25 was struggling. So like within 5 to 6 years, that's when I went to my first training. I think I was 25, 26. And that's when I started to really get honest with myself and go, okay, I need to make more money. I desire to make more money. I wanted to be a better manager, better leader to my team. And I knew it was me. Like deep down, I think so many of us, we know it's us, but we're like, where is it? Where is it in my body? Where is it in the business? What's going on? Why is my thinking this way? And so that's where I think a lot of us, we know it's us. We just don't know where specifically we're being blocked or where we're blocking ourselves. And that's where I knew, I would hire 5 agents and 3 of them would leave. Right. And so it was just like this revolving door of turnover that was rough. And I knew I was a hothead. I was getting super angry because I'm like, what do you mean you can't make sales calls? Right. And people would be like, I just made 5 phone calls on a sales meeting, in a morning. And I'm like, all right, go do what I did. And I didn't understand that people couldn't model me because they had blocks and limitations. They had belief systems that were super incongruent to getting success. And that's when I realized I think I need to be more compassionate with people that I don't understand why they're not like me. So that was like my first red flag was like, okay, if they can't go do what I do, then what's getting in their way? And then I realized the same thing that was being so strong and harsh and like, you know, it was almost like Wolf of Wall Street, like, let's go make calls. And like, why are you not pumped up to go do this? Like, you can help people, you can make money here. And that's when I realized that not everybody's motivated by money, right? People are motivated by relationships. They're motivated to take care of their family, even though it's not immediately obvious. You typically need money to take care of your family, right? And so there's all these different motivations that I had to learn. Not everyone was motivated by me, right? And so we all have different types of motivations, which is values. Values are what's important to us. They're not immediately conscious and aware. We're not aware of most of our values, which is what's most important to us. So your top like 4 values in business is like really truly what drives you toward what you want to go after. And the thing that I realize is I had some away from motivations because my dad got fired when when I was 11 years old. I saw him like just completely kind of get dismantled by the corporate world. And I said, if that's what the corporate America does to my dad, I want nothing to do with that. And so that's why I jumped into entrepreneurship so young. And about the same time when I was 11, 12 was when my grandfather was mentoring me and my brother, my older brother. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is we have these blocks, but we can't put our finger on what specifically they are because they're so unconscious. It's like the hard drive in your computer. You don't look at the screen and see what's inside your computer. You just see what the computer's running, and that's the monitor, right? But the hard drive of the computer is like all your baggage, your emotions, your belief systems, your attitudes. If you had a trauma from mom and dad at 5 years old, you don't see it on the screen because it's in the hard drive. And that's what's going on in our brain. That's what's going on in our body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%.
It makes sense. I mean, I want to ask a very like fundamental question is what does NLP mean to you and what's your perspective?
Great question. Great question. So neurolinguistic programming is really the science of communication. So it was kind of created in the 70s by a couple of guys. One of them was a computer programmer, John Grinder, Richard Bandler. Richard Bandler was kind of like this computer program mind. John Grinder was more around language. It was all linguistics. How do you take linguistics and use it to reframe people's problems, right? So you can always take a problem somebody has, just like an objection in sales, and reframe it to come some kind of a positive solution. So no matter what you've been through in life, if we look at it from the victim consciousness side, right? If we only look at it from victim consciousness, then essentially, you know, we're never going to be empowered and become powerful enough to overcome that downtime in our life. And this is where I think a lot of people are living right now. If you're living in victim consciousness, like my example, I'm not anything in my life because my dad was fired at 11 years old. That drove me. And before that, even when I was 7, I got held back in the 2nd grade. So I put a chip on my shoulder because my twin sister and I got held back in the 2nd grade. So I was like, I'm going to beat people and I'm going to be the best I can be. Well, those are moments in all of our lives. Those are memories that if we look at them just from the negative lens, we're only going to get more negative feelings, negative learnings, negative emotions. And then we wonder why we spiral out of control, feeling depressed, feeling not good enough, having self-worth stuff, perfectionism, failing to launch, procrastination, all the things that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. And NLP helps you analyze this in a way that, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Taste, smell, and what are you consistently thinking about? And so when you can run through this program, these are the programs in our mind, they're running in our body. What a lot of entrepreneurs have is negative self-talk, right? So they're about to go do something really courageous or brave. And then they go, you can't do this. In their mind, they're like, who do you think you are? You're not fucking good enough for this, right? And so they say this stuff and that's what trips them up. And then they go, you know what? I don't want to make $1 million. I'll settle for 250. And so the science of communication first is how do you communicate with yourself? And then how to use language to communicate with others. And so NLP is essentially the code when we decipher what's going on in our reality. What do we see? What are we aware of? And then what are we not aware of because it's so unconscious? It's in that hard drive, right? Stored deep because there was deep pain, deep trauma. And our unconscious mind is to protect and preserve the body at all times. And so what we do is we repress things that are not ready for us to address because maybe we're not consciously ready for it. Maybe we're not mature enough. Maybe we're too stressed out. We're moving too fast and it's not ready for us. This is why sometimes when people go on vacation, all of a sudden they get sick. They have this symptomology of a sickness or a flu. Well, what's happening is your body's finally down regulated. Your nervous system says, hey, let's process some of the stuff that you just went through over the last few months in your stressful business, hiring that person, having some debt and financial struggle, firing that person, getting out of that ugly relationship, getting into a new relationship. Those are all stressful things that the body, it's impinging on our world, right? And so neurolinguistic programming, for what we really do with coaching in our framework, is how do we sift through all the things that could be tripping people up, like limitations. So limiting beliefs are what we believe to be true, but they're not true. And so if we have a story that's tied to that limiting belief, like when I was in school and I got a really bad grade on this test, the teacher said, I think you could do better. And then I felt like in that moment, I was too stupid, too incapable. And I considered myself to have this belief of I'm not good enough. And that's when our beliefs are created. When we're usually 0 to 7 years old is where a lot of our belief systems are created, from mom and dad, school, upbringing, church, religion, whatever. And so NLP helps you be able to rewire this and reprogram it. That's why they call it neuro, the mind, everything you see, hear, feel, think about. Linguistics, language that's spoken and unspoken. Body language is huge. Body language is 56% of how we communicate. And then programming is how do you reprogram the stuff that you don't want in there, right? And then project a new program. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, because everybody kind of has their own kind of perspective of NLP and like their examples of it. So it's useful for people watching to actually like hear your perspective, which was very interesting.
A lot of people think NLP is like, because I had an NLP copywriter a year ago, and some of the best NLP copywriters, some of the best copywriters are NLP trained, NLP driven, because they can make their language so persuasive, so influential, right? Which is what a big piece of NLP is. As a coach, as a performance coach and a trainer of NLP, I'm thinking, how can I help influence somebody out of their problems into success, right? And I think we're always selling, even though a lot of people don't think we are. You're either selling yourself into your goals and dreams, or you're selling yourself into your problems and your scarcity. So number one, I think we have to wake up every day and battle this sales. Am I going to sell myself into my dream, or am I going to sell myself into like scarcity, right? And the BS that holds me back, the belief systems. And so that's, to me, like, a lot of people just think NLP is sales driven, but it is, but it's not. There's this whole other kind of body of knowledge that's pure performance, personal growth, spiritual development, personal development, that is actually how you release trauma. And anytime you speak words, and we're like communicating right here on this podcast, like that's literally, we're casting spells to the universe of everything we say, because everything's frequency and vibration. So NLP is a big piece of language. I would say I'm a linguistic, like I've kind of mastered language, because the more you master language, you realize you can't tell yourself scarcity if you're focused on positivity and abundance. So that's the big piece that I think a lot of coaches lack or miss, especially entrepreneurs. You're speaking into existence everything you don't want, and then we wonder why we get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, why am I still in debt? Because I'm focused on debt. I got to get out of debt, right? But we're focused on debt instead of profit.
So I guess a question I have is like, so I've learned about hypnosis and NLP and kind of like how they are very intertwined in the same. And I probably spent a little bit more time in like hypnosis and taking people and like learning about trances and stuff like that to like kind of like induce somebody into like suggesting them into a certain reality to help change some of their thinking. I assume it's kind of like a deeper form of NLP, but I guess for people listening, because I personally did back in college, like my freshman year, I had like a big report, and I like specifically did it on hypnosis because I was able to choose my topic, and I thought it was so interesting. And so, but most people, and it's funny because like my teacher didn't believe that hypnosis was a thing, like that it existed. And she thought it was like some hokey pokey stuff. And so I guess what I wanted to kind of hear from you is like, so NLP is I want to say like not a watered down version of hypnosis, but like a little bit different, and because it's more of just language. And I want to hear kind of from you, like, what is your, like, how would you first approach somebody an entrepreneur, like what is your usual go-to to start integrating some NLP techniques into somebody's language to really start getting them to fix some of their language and get some of these results? Like, what does it really look like in practicality? I know in hypnosis, it's like you need to learn how to do a trance. You need to learn how to get somebody to, start suggesting them into, and it really, to me, it seems like hypnosis is more of somebody else is doing this to you and guiding you through an experience. I could be wrong because I know that there's self-hypnosis, but for NLP, I'm curious, like, what are some first steps? Like, what does it like in practicality look like? Because it can sound like hokey pokey stuff, but in practicality, like, what does it actually mean? And how can you really get started? And how can somebody, see how this could really work in their life very easily?
No, Jake, that's like a fantastic question. So like, to me, the way Deb and we learned hypnosis and NLP are literally the same. Hypnosis is simply this: are you willing to follow instructions? You can't do something to someone if it's not within their set of belief systems and values. Like if I said, guys, take a deep breath, close your eyes, don't open your eyes because they're so relaxed. You guys have full control. Hypnosis and NLP is you're always in control. The big thing that's going around in our society right now is people feel manipulated because they have a story of manipulation in them. And there's no doubt the media and all this stuff around that we're hearing, all these systems that we're kind of crumbling around us, there is forms of manipulation and massive control. But that's hypnosis. And hypnosis is being used on the people and has been used on the people for hundreds of years. Like, this is basically the unconscious mind is this. There's the critical wedge is the book, right? And then the conscious mind is the 5%. The unconscious mind is the 95% of us. This is the part of us where our belief systems, our stories, our habits, our traumas, our emotions, everything lives in the 95% of us. And then what we all are focused on in school, get the job, right? Go to school, get a good job because you've got the degree, buy a house, get married, have kids. That's like very conscious mind driven. So many of us are focused on this conscious mind, trying to solve problems consciously when the problems can only be solved at the unconscious level because it's stored in the body. And so when you're doing hypnosis, you're actually removing this wedge. This wedge is what keeps us safe. That's our survival mechanism. It says, hey guys, if we climb to the roof and we try to jump off, there's the thing called gravity that could hurt us. Don't do that. That's stupid. But this survival mechanism is what keeps us safe and playing small and actually hurts us from growth and expansion. And so when you have a coach that says, hey, Jake, you guys focus on confidence. Tell yourself, look in the mirror and say, I'm confident, I'm loved, I'm beautiful, I'm handsome, I'm ready for more. I can take action, right? I can build a business and be successful. And then you're like, I don't really believe this crap that I'm saying. That's because the critical wedge is literally blocking this. Now, what happens when you're in a hypnotic trance and you're doing hypnosis and or NLP techniques and processes, you're removing this wedge. And when the wedge is removed, the conscious, the unconscious integrate. So now you can learn consciously because you're getting the learnings and you're also rewiring the program of the story of scarcity. Like the foreclosure that you saw mom and dad go through, you don't have to go through it. But because we've been through it, that's why so many people that are raised in a divorced, broken family have more relationships after that or that are divorced and broken. It's because we've wired ourselves to believe and see and model what mom and dad did. And so we take that all in at the unconscious level. And so what happens is during trance, we're actually removing this. Now, here's where it happens in reality. You're watching a movie like, let's say, I, Robot with Will Smith, right? You're entranced in this movie. As soon as you watch a movie, guess what happens? Your critical faculty is removed because it's suspending disbelief from reality versus fantasy. And then all of a sudden an Audi goes by and you're like, wow, that's a cool car. That's why product placement happens in movies. They're selling to us when we watch a movie. People don't even realize this. Just like Joe Rogan, you're listening to his podcast and all of a sudden Joe's like, hey, by the way, farmer's dog, right? And they're selling product placement. So when people share a story, you get entrenched in the story and you're like, oh, wow, this is an incredible story. And all of a sudden, before you know it, something's being sold to us or installed into our subconscious. People don't even realize this. And this is happening. We're the only ridiculous country that does the pharmaceutical commercials. You're watching some show, which we don't really watch TV, we read, but you're watching a show. Then all of a sudden it's like ambient comes on and you're like, blah, 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 blah. Is that actual side effects, or are they installations? And I would say both.
And the thing is like, you know, coming from a marketing hat as an advertiser, man, I could talk about this all day. Like the algorithm and like the Joe Rogan example is like people in that scenario listening, they're extremely suggested to be impressioned of a positive promotion that Joe Rogan says, because there is already such trust built into hearing it from Joe Rogan. They not only trust the man, but they're only watching and suggest because they believe everything that's already being conveyed. And so
100%.
when all of a sudden that is mixed in, that is why people go crazy for, you know, or any of the Kardashians, any of this stuff, like any promotion of people that like they just trust and respect. Anyone. Like,
that's trust by association.
Yep.
Yeah,
There's a rapport, right? And so like this is the thing where I learned NLP with hypnosis. So I learned a body of knowledge with neurolinguistic programming plus hypnosis plus a coaching framework that we've kind of created our own couple techniques. And we've melded all these different modalities together. We really do NLP. We work with NLP, but you can't do NLP is a do with process. It's not a do to. What's happening in our society is we're thinking that people have the ability to control others. Yes, you have the ability to persuade and influence over someone, but if you know NLP, if you understand hypnosis, you can't be manipulated. And you also have the ability to release your manipulation, because if you are afraid of manipulation, you're focused on manipulation. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to go attract everyone in your world that's going to try to manipulate you because you're focused on holding on to, I will not be manipulated. Well, what do you want instead of manipulation? How about connection? How about honest, you know, trusting conversations, right? Meet people that have friendships and clients. And so this is where they toward and away from. So many people are motivated by the stick instead of going after the carrot, right? Do you want the reward or the bonus, or do you want to wait till things get so bad that you're forced to change? And this is where society is right now. It's getting so bad that we're like, oh my God, I'm willing to throw out my entire belief system, my whole life, because I'm tired of feeling sick and tired. I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of not making enough money. I'm tired of these bad relationships. I'm tired of being, you know, walked all over because I have no boundaries. Right. And so I learned hypnosis and NLP together, which to me, they go hand in hand because it's literally the subconscious work we do. But hypnosis is not like, this is where Hollywood has done us zero justice, and marketing is powerful, right? Because you're watching a movie and you see product placement. That doesn't mean you're going to go out and buy an Audi like that movie. But if you happen to be in the market for a car, just because now that's in your subconscious, you're like, hey, honey, let's go check out the Audi. And that's how it works. It's these little seeds that are subliminally planted at the subconscious level, that if you are in the market to go buy that thing or something similar, then you've got a greater chance of saying, you know what, maybe we should look at Audi. Remember that movie? And you don't even sometimes remember the movie. You just remember Audi. And this is why marketing is so powerful, is they know the subconscious is like, I don't know if you guys have, you know, Madison Avenue, like that's where that came from, spin selling. And what's his name? He's the master of spin selling. Oh, it's Edward Bernays. Like there's a whole rabbit hole you can run down with that. His like family member was Freud. Freud was a master hypnotherapist, right? Or psychologist that was using hypnosis and thought it was the dark, dirty, evil things. Your subconscious is like where everything lives. That's how you transform your life. And it's not a dirty, evil place. It's where you can sift through the emotions and the things that hold you back in life.
What you just explained is basically almost exactly the movie Inception, of how they plant an idea.
A dream within a dream within a dream. Totally.
Like and it just grows to become the intended result. Yeah,
Inception. I think Inception's the one. It's the movie where there's like he had a dream, and then it was like in the dream, and then he's like in the dream. that's a great example of hypnosis because it's so hypnotic. That's 100% right. We always talk about Inception too with Leonardo DiCaprio.
The thing that's like really wild though, like what you were saying of like people like about like being influenced, and what I'm noticing in society, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I think it's really interesting, is like I feel as though there's so much chaos going on that people check out, and then they look for who to tell them what's going on, and then they look at the media, they look at the news. Most people look at the media and the news, and they don't even almost see the advertisers that are behind the news. They don't see the BlackRock and these other massive organizations with their own agendas that just utilize the news as puppets. I mean, for example, like if you look at, the pharmaceutical companies, like there's usually not a lot of bad news about pharmaceutical companies. Why is that? They're the ones that
shocking to me.
They're the ones that pay for the advertisers, like for the news, like, and so they literally own the distribution. And so like it's so crazy to me when you look at how political the world has gotten, especially in America, and how it's chaos, and it's painful because you see, like, as an advertiser, I see, and I've had this this cap on for a while now, seeing how ads and content influences behavior. And it's really wild. It's just really wild to see how people check out and then they go for some sort of authority. And I think choosing who that authority is and being actually really diligent within that authority, and not just trusting them because they're in power, but because of having real values of why you want to listen to them, and doing your research a little bit is, like, I think really important, because it's very easy online now, especially with AI and all these things, to have to create a narrative. For people that do very superficial thinking, like to create a narrative, and then to see how persuaded the masses can be off of these little very terrible narratives that anybody else looking from the outside is like, you guys are clearly just being manipulated by this little content. It's so crazy. And so it's really, I think, very related to this conversation, because what my understanding is that NLP is like the raw, like getting in there and really being able to shift some of these bigger mountains of not just little superficial, hey, this is how I want to persuade you, but really getting into the psyche of the brain and the mind, and like, why are we behaving the ways that we are, to then really do some work and to really change genuine beliefs. And
you're spot on, Jake. You're spot on, because people they watch the news and they don't see the advertisers. Everyone has an agenda. And what they're not doing is taking this information and running it through their critical lens. What do I see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and think about this piece of information, this data? And am I just reacting based on my subconscious beliefs and attitudes because I don't want anyone to feel, there's so much, just misery out there. There's so much scarcity.
It's intended to make you react. Like most of this content is intended to poke the bear, so that you're like, and you react and you become in your emotional state of being without your logical, why are they doing this? Why are they showing this piece of content? What is the meaning behind this? It's so crazy, man. It's really quite a scary world when you look at all the media and all the content online now. It's like, it's crazy. And if you don't know this is going on, the amount of influence that you are getting seduced by is it's crazy.
Besides the billboards on the highway, you've got social media bombarding with ads on TV, movies, product placement, the news, product placement. Like, we're like, my wife and I, Deborah, we're very healthy. We watch everything we put in our body. We're not seed oils. We're not like toxic food or any of that stuff. And people need to really consider what they put into their mind, because the same things we put in our body, that's healthy food and nutrition, we're very careful of what we put into our mind. And so here's one of the best techniques that we say. If you are talking to someone, you're like, hey, I love this human being, but I don't agree with anything they say. We say to ourselves or out loud, cancel, clear, delete, cancel, clear, delete. What we're doing is we're actually putting in the wedge. When you say cancel, clear, delete, so your mind is open. If you're in rapport with somebody, you trust a friend, you trust a family, you're already in rapport. When you say cancel, clear, delete, now you're putting in the wedge, and you're like, yeah, I don't believe that person. Somebody says, Brandon, I don't believe I can make, I don't think business owners in the coaching space can make $1 million a year on their own. I'm like, cancel, clear, delete. That's total bullshit. I believe anyone can make $1 million if they believe they can. And the reason why they aren't is because they don't believe they can make $1 million. Just like so many people, what 2020 did was make people realize and almost influence them that they can't heal their body, that there was some mysterious thing going around that's going to make you sick. That's a belief system, right?
Yeah.
And values level 4 is a construct of there's always an invisible enemy. And I just choose not to buy into that frequency.
And like, let's go down that for 2 seconds, because like, what did they do? What did the media actually do? Okay. This was Pfizer. This is these companies that when you really look into what these companies do, whenever they find real cure things, they like, there was a person that worked at Pfizer that came out and said, yeah, I was on the development team of their products. And if they found a cure, they'd say, we can't make money off of that. So no. So like Pfizer and all these big corporations, they were creating the vaccine because it was the biggest blowout. It was like the best sale ever and then when you look at like the
and it's free, it's a free product. That's fascinating. Insurance covers it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, that was just crazy. And then what did the media do when a guy like Joe Rogan, who's actually speaking truth, that actually is like, no, I'm not going to believe this stuff, I'm going to do it myself. They're like, he's using horse medicine. It's like unbelievable when you really look. Like, they tried to weaponize him and make him look like a villain. And when you really look into what it was, it's like yeah, you use the same thing if you're trying to get rid of parasites. It's like an obvious thing.
Which is so funny because like ivermectin won a Nobel Peace Prize. Most people don't realize this. It was one of the best medicines I think ever created in, like, I want to say it was the 70s, maybe the 60s. I can't remember, but it was a while ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And the guy that created it did it for humans, not just animals. And then they kind of transferred it to animals because it worked so well. It was a little bit of both. So I just think you're right though. They weaponize it. Like, it's like hypnosis, guys. If I can do a hypnosis, like trance induction with you guys both, let's say you guys both struggle with sleep, which, by the way, the real pandemic is sleep. People don't get enough sleep. That's the reason why they're sick. There's so many reasons why they're not, they have brain fog and all this stuff, because people do not get, an average of even 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. Most people struggle with sleep. If I can do hypnosis with you, record an audio for free and send it to you guys, and you guys start getting better sleep, how can you make money on that? You can't make money on that unless I charge you, right? So that's why we got to have a pill for everything. And it's not just the vaccine. We're talking everything, right? Anxiety medicine. Anxiety is fear of the future. Well, if you release fear of the past, then you're not going to project fear into your future, right? PTSD, I've worked with vets. They have severe fear of the past because they had this explosive moment that was highly traumatic. Of course, they're going to have fear because that's a stressful moment. And then they're going to project it into their future because they haven't been able to emotionally release the gestalt of emotions around it, which means get the learnings, figure out what gift is amongst that garbage. Like, it's a horrible moment, but if we just thinking it's a horrible moment for the rest of our life, we're never going to learn anything from it, no matter how bad a situation is, right? Whether it's sexual abuse, literally it's a death or anything. There is something good that comes from it, that if we take the good and extrapolate that, like resilience, strength, power, I became more aware. I became more self-aware, right? A heightened sense of awareness in those moments. That's learnings that helps us actually release why we have the emotion. The emotions disappear, and then we can focus on what we want. This is why there's so much medicine out there for anxiety and PTSD and depression stuff, which the brain doesn't process. Like, the brain doesn't focus. The body's not built to be on these psychotropic medications, right? I'm not a doctor. I can't say this, but the reality is people are more messed up because they have all this brain fog and they're not using the very tool, which is this superhuman fucking computer that we are gods in potential. We are godlike. And if we channel this, we can clear out and heal the body. You don't need something outside of you. I believe everything we need is inside of us. We just need to remember who we are. We need to access that information and that knowledge. It's already in us. It already is. Like, we just got back from Egypt. The ancients knew this. Maya, Peru, Lake Atalan in Guatemala, Egypt, Ayurvedic, the Middle East. The reason why there's so much chaos and conflict in the Middle East, because there's so much magic there. That's why. People don't realize this. Like, go back to the ancients. They fucking figured this shit out thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And we're like, somehow we just keep forgetting this and we keep like redoing this.
So it's basically getting in, using the external tools, and mostly like drugs, for example. It stops your brain and mind from fixing itself, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think we need fixing. I think we just need to understand how we process information. Like we literally have this, like all this information comes in from our eyes, our ears, and we have 2 million to 3 million bits per second of data coming in. We have so much data coming in, especially now with AI, social media, technology. You have to delete, distort, and generalize. We distort, delete, and generalize this data, right? So an example, if we say, hey guys, I'm driving to, you know, New York, and I see a sign going to Salt Lake 15 miles, I delete that information. It's not relevant, right? And so we have to delete and distort and generalize data, but a lot of us are distorting stuff that we should be deleting. And sometimes we're generalizing things that we need to be deleting. So you can only grab about 146 to 165 bits per second. So you have to ask yourself what pieces of information that you're deleting, grabbing onto that no longer serves you, that you ought to consider doing something different. That's the filters that we're dealt with, right? So we're distorting things we shouldn't distort, right? Like my wife looked at me that way. That means she's angry at me. Well, how do I know? I didn't ask the question. So it goes back to hypnosis and NLP. The language is like, we mind read so much stuff we shouldn't mind read. What we need to do is ask questions, thorough questions, to really understand how someone thinks, how they feel, what they see, what they heard, instead of mind reading. And this is why the ambiguous language of like the language politicians use, like it was so fascinating to just see the way all politicians talk, right? Neither side do I agree with, because it's word salads. They say a lot and it means nothing. That's what's happening right now. Does that make sense?
And would you call that process like critical thinking, maybe, to be able to defend information that you don't need and get it out of your system?
Yes. Yeah. When you critically think, you can delete and distort and generalize. So what NLP gave me was this body of knowledge of all the things I was unaware of through my own language, but also I got really specific in how I listened. Like for the first time on my sales calls, I started to realize, stop steamrolling people because I think I know the answer. Listen to what they're saying, process it. And this is where sales is purely listening. It's not talking. Then once I hear what they're saying, I say, what does that mean to you? How specifically is that a problem? What specifically do you mean by this? See, we all have
to understand their perspective.
Exactly. So if we all said, hey, what does success mean to the three of us? We all have a different label for what success is. The word means something, but we have a different internal representation. And internal representation is what we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, and self-talk, right? What we think about. And so that's like what's going on in humanity. We're so divided because something can come out on the media that's like danger. Well, we all know what danger is, but what does it mean to us? Well, if somebody has trauma because they got put in a dangerous situation, they're going to be highly charged by that topic on TV, right? On the news. And if somebody who doesn't have that trauma isn't going to be as charged. So now you already have this divisive way to polarize and do this forced choice dichotomy, which is such bullshit, right? Forced choice dichotomy is you only have this way or this way, Republican or Democrat, black, white, left, right, blue, red. I'm like, come on, there's like a million other choices, guys. How are we only seeing these two choices? That is manipulation. That's steering people down an agenda. Instead of A, B, C, D, E, we have multiple options and people still think we don't. And I'm like, wake up, you guys, you're in a cloud of hypnosis.
Yeah, it goes back to kind of what I mentioned before of like these media channels, man, are just like that process of clear, alt, delete. Okay, when they have very aggressive type of content that's emotionally stimulating, or that is left or right, or that is this or that, and it's like that's the stuff they're pushing because that triggers your RAS, your reticular activation system of things to focus on, and now you're focused on exactly what they want you to be focused on, which is division.
Yes.
It's just
I think we lost Jake for a bit, right?
got you back now. But yeah, you're right. So RAS, your reticular activating system. So if you're an entrepreneur and you can focus on success with pure intensity and stubbornness, if you just focus on only the outcome of being positive and successful and abundant, you'll find that outcome, right? You'll get that desired outcome more often than not. What do most people do? They focus on what they don't want. I got to get out of debt. I need to get a better job. Listen to my language. Need, have to, I like always, ever, never. You never show up on time, right? You never acknowledge what I've done. When you speak always, ever, never, need to, have to, must, should, those are modal operators. Modal operators in NLP terms is language that is out of necessity. Which presupposes you're not in control of your behavior. And if you're not in control of your behavior, you're focused on what you don't want. So people go, I got to get a better job. I need to get out of this abusive relationship. I hate the work that I do. My boss is an asshole, right? They're focused on all that negativity. Now that will create success and going in the right direction. But after a while, if you continue to focus on what you don't want, you'll get it. So you shouldn't be shocked when you get the shit you don't want, because you're still speaking that into existence. And there was a creator god in Egypt, Ptah, P-T-A-H. Ptah is a creator god. And he said he conceived reality in his heart and then he spoke it into existence. That's why spells, you cast spells with your speech, because you're saying something negative. You're saying the same negative thing to yourself. If you're casting a spell of scarcity, that means you're casting a spell of scarcity to yourself, because the unconscious mind doesn't process a negative. So if I said, guys, don't slip and fall, what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
Slipping and falling.
Of course.
You have to think about slipping and falling before you negate to not slip and fall to don't slip and fall. So you can't think about what you don't want to think about without first thinking about it. Think about that. So if I said don't slip and fall, or if I say this, don't think of the blue rhino in the room, you're thinking about a blue rhino. That's how you install instantaneously. Don't think about the purple elephant, guys. Do not, whatever you do, don't think about a purple elephant. What are you thinking about? A fucking purple elephant. And that's how the media works.
Yeah.
And it's so smooth and it's so manipulative. It's like, fucking, what did you just say? It's so funny when we travel, I'm walking through the airport and I hear all this subliminal shit on the news because I never watch it. And I'm like, oh my God, I perk up and I go, wow, that was an installation. Oh, that was negative as shit. Wow, that's not healthy. And when you clear out your subconscious, that's when you actually start to realize how unconsciously we behave as humans. We just react to shit. And the more shit you have unconsciously, the more shit you react. It's fucking fascinating.
So now talking about critical thinking, and knowing that like a major problem we have in personal development is the person knowing the information and the person applying the information. So now we know about the critical mind and that we need to be critical about every single piece of information that we get. How do we make sure that we actually apply that for anyone listening?
I mean, the first thing is to really get conscious of your language, like cancel, clear, delete. If somebody is trying to put something into your mind, get conscious of what they're actually saying. Like interpret that. The problem that most people
can't mean constantly analyzing what you're
well, it's not over analyzing. It's also using conscious language. So instead of saying what you don't want, say what you do want. So it's so easy for us in business as entrepreneurs. Hey, I don't want you to post this on social media anymore. Don't do this. Stop doing that. This isn't what I want. Don't do that. So instead of that type of language, what do you want instead? The best question, we have clients come to us and they tell us everything they don't want. They're like, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want a woman who cheats on me. Like I'm coaching a guy right now. I don't want a woman who cheats on me. I don't want a woman who controls me and manipulates me. And I'm like, dude, stop. What do you want instead? He didn't even know for a moment. He had to think about it because we're so programmed to don't, right? Mom and dad, don't run in the house. Don't play with the pens on the table. We're so programmed for what we don't want. So you literally had to think, oh, I want a woman who loves me. I want a woman who trusts me. I want a woman who she knows I trust her, right? I want honesty, right? So we got to focus on what we do desire and want. And I think so many people struggle with that. First, ask yourself, what is it that you desire? instead of what you don't want. So get clear on what you want, get clear on what you desire, and focus specifically on what you want, because you get what you focus on. So you got to aim at the target, right? If you're not shooting at a target of what you exactly specifically desire, like specificity is so key. That's the RAS. You get off your ass and get focused on your RAS, reticular activating system. If you're focused on $1 million, then focus on specifically what it takes to go build $1 million business.
I have a question. So, there's so many scenarios where, like, I'm a huge believer of, people, if they're going to watch the news, to watch something like ground news, where it's mediated. It's like, it shows, which left leaning, which leaning it could be, and all the content. Now, I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is, what do you do? And this is like an actual question. Like, what do you do when somebody is giving information that is clear out delete? Do you fight it? Do you tell them and set a boundary, or do you just internally clear out delete? Because, man, I can't tell you the amount of times that I get people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's whoever, that is trying to influence. And I can tell that they're trying to influence. And my natural reaction, and most people's natural reaction, is to argue and to battle and to defend and all the things. And all I see when that's happening is there's a couple things. Like, usually you're completely blocking out any ability to actually hear the other person's side of point of view, but you're also feeding that whole everything just more energy. And so I'm kind of curious, how do you do the clear out delete? Do you just kind of take mental note, shake your head, nod, and then just do it internally? Or do you set a boundary? Or do you what is your actual process?
It's not easy to do until you clear out the emotional baggage that has us reacting to all this stuff. Like, I would like, Deb and I have been together for going on 13 years. When I was in real estate for 17 years, I would react to stuff that I no longer react to in this business, in our coaching and training company. So the biggest thing is, if you have an abnormal reaction, if you have this off the cuff, highly emotional reaction, you need to clear it out. You need to do the release work. That's the deep work, because I choose to be, and the goal is to remain. One of our mentors in Mayaland and right outside of Tulum is Miguel. And he's like, balance. I love how he says it. He's like, be in balance. He's like, when you're extreme here and you're extreme there, this is where we are. We've gotten to the extreme. Like, how can we be in balance? Balance is like, you're always moving. There's nothing that stands still. It's inevitable that we're consistently in this cycles and rhythms of motion. So be as in balance as you can and be as neutral as you can. If you're super plugged in about vaccines, let that shit go, because you're only going to attract more people that fight vaccines or are for vaccines, right? If we're fighting people around, scarcity, as an example, the news. Personally, I don't put that shit in my field. The news is literally garbage. It is control. If you feel you have to watch that to be informed, ask yourself, if you're being informed with information that is negative to your subconscious, negative to your results, and scarce because it's causing you to make a forced choice dichotomy, is that the healthiest thing you could be putting in your mind and your body? And I say, for me, fuck no. It's a hell no. I mean, that's the reality, right? And so if you are getting this reaction to someone else, do the inner game work. This is where I think people go, well, it's their fault that I'm reacting to what they said. No. I choose to how I respond to someone. And if I react to someone, what they say, I need to take agency, radical self-responsibility, right? Radical self-agency. And it's my choice on how I respond and how I react. This is the difference between victim conscious and taking radical self-responsibility, which is a universal law, by the way. Cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. If you're in effect, that means you're in the blame game. The world is happening to you instead of happening for you. Cause is taking radical self-responsibility. Results. If I'm in effect, I'm making reasons for why I'm not getting results. And I choose to get results in my life, my business, for my clients. And so we have to realize that there's a greater universal equation here that's cause and effect. And it really does, I don't know, sometimes frustrate people that they realize they're not taking radical self-responsibility in their life. And so I choose not to fight these systems. Like all of these systems, the medical system, completely corrupt, guys. The financial system. In 2008, when I was doing foreclosed properties, is when I started to wake up as a real estate broker. I'm like, holy crap. I went through loan doc after loan doc after loan doc as a real estate broker, listing foreclosed properties. And I realized people were signing 110, 115, 120% finance properties, and they didn't even make $100,000 a year in California. And we had like the most foreclosures out of majority of the states in the country. And I started to go, oh my God, Wall Street and our entire banking system is so fucking corrupt. That is when I the veil started to lift, because I was excited to make money and buy properties and invest and flip properties. And I realized, holy crap, if our banking system is willing to do this, you guys have seen The Big Short. If you haven't seen The Big Short, it's basically what happened in 2008. And when I realized that we had that much weighing on profit over people, I started to really rethink, and I go, oh my God, why are we doing this to people? Why are we doing this to each other? Like, we're all brothers and sisters here. This is so fucked up. And that's when I started to kind of find NLP just years later. And I realized, like, I don't want to be a real estate broker. I want to help everyone. I want to help people clear their trauma. I want to help people, get empowered in their life, build a business, because small business is how we're going to get back to unity and oneness. It's not big corporations that control our data. It's not big corporations that control our daily lives through technology. It's small business. And I think what we're going to see is this paradigm shift over the next 15 to 20 years, where people are actually getting back into right rhythms and right relations with their community, with their neighbors, with their friends and family. And I think, like, farming is one of those things that's been completely commercialized, and we're destroying our soil. I come from a background of farmers and ranchers. My dad was, my great grandfather was. And so when we start to choose to take agency over how we're actually farming with love versus chemicals and all these other pesticides and things that are super toxic to us, like, we got to start to realize we should be doing this for people, not for profit. And right now we're still on this profit track. And so it's hard for me to get, like, that's one of those areas where I'll get triggered if somebody's like, oh yeah, the chemicals are fine. I'm like, my dad worked for DuPont Agrochemicals. I'm like, the chemicals are not fine. And I can show you lots of case studies on multi-million-dollar lawsuits. Like, chemicals are not good for our soil, folks. Like, regenerative agriculture is so much cleaner and safer and healthier. But the best thing we can do is clear out the drama, clear out the behavior, the habits, the emotions, the trauma, because that's what keeps us from reacting, so we can actually critically think and take in information and have a debate, have like a healthy conversation that's like, hey, I may not agree with you on everything, but let's at least talk about it in a calm manner without somebody pulling out a knife and trying to shank each other. Like, that's what we need to get to, is get back to this peace.
Which is what it feels like
yeah,
any argument these days. I mean, it's just crazy. See how emotionally reactive people are, how divided people are. But
it's wild.
Brandon, it's been really amazing just getting to chat here. We definitely have to bring you back on. For anybody that's listening, where can people find you? Where can people learn more about sort of what you offer and your program and all the things? Why don't you share kind of with the audience, where they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our podcast is Your True Alchemy. We're big into alchemy. We're big into esoteric kind of spiritual teachings, universal laws, the ancient wisdom. They knew what was happening before we were just like coming full circle back around to like energy and medicine. So Your True Alchemy is our podcast, YourTrueAlchemy.com. We do some global retreats to Egypt, to Mayaland, to Lake Atalan. And we love this piece of combining our language, human performance, performance coaching tools and certification programs with like spirituality, and this blend of still acknowledging the ancient ways. There's so many indigenous cultures that just had like incredible knowledge and information that we can't ignore. Egypt's a magical place, guys. It's like, I hope you guys get a chance to come with us at some point, because you'll see, we were kind of redoing this page, but absolute magical energy there, and ancient wisdom that we all can tap into. I definitely connected to Osir, which is Osiris, like this energy. I feel like there's a thread of all of us, should we choose to want to tap into that. There is some thread that I think takes all of us back to Egypt at some point, whether it's genetics or something crazy there. Like, I had an incredible experience there in December this past year. And it was life-changing. So yeah, we'd love to, check that out.
We'll be in
Awesome.
Africa.
Is that experience? Yeah, we're gonna be in Africa soon in a few months. We're going to Morocco.
Are you?
Is the experience that you had documented? Can people find it somewhere to watch it or no?
Yeah, my wife and I did a podcast on it a few weeks. I don't know if that one's live yet. I need to do it again because it was pretty powerful. It like literally, I'm 40 years old. It rocked my world of like knowing who I am. And I was able to finally receive some gifts and some knowledge that I had been like blocking at the unconscious level for like, I don't know, self-worth stuff, fear of wielding power, whatever it was. It was an incredible, like pure soul connection of knowing who I am. And it's funny that Osiris taught his people farming and agriculture along the Nile River. And like, that's my lineage as farmers and ranchers. So it was an incredible, like spiritual connection of just weeping and releasing stuff that wasn't serving me and my confidence and my abilities to help people.
That sounds amazing.
Cool, man. Well, listen, I'm really, I hope we can do this again. I mean, I feel like we could go a lot longer.
Let's do it.
There's so much. So let's make it happen. And thanks again for coming on. And
thank you, Raheem. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. And to everybody watching until here, this has been the Scale Adventures podcast.